Saab 9.3 was the car that I cut my teeth on learning how to drive a manual. It's also going to be sold soon. It belongs to a family member. The Saab is dead, which is upsetting to me because Saab was probably the first real special car that I owned. This one is mine. As I said, it belongs to a family member, but I have a 9.3 Aero, and that was my first personal manual car. And that was my first car that was, you know, not a car that a mom would have. Not that moms don't like Saabs. So for me, this is a pretty important car because it represents a lot of my interest in motoring. Now, this car has been tuned by Boost Customs in Toronto. We had a great experience there. They did a full custom tune, so it means that you bring the car to them and they download software from the car, they sit on their computer and they sift through incredibly large amounts of code, and they change things like ignition timing and fuel mapping, tons of stuff, right? Very complicated. I couldn't do it myself, and they did an absolutely fantastic job. It's all custom. It's specific to the car. So it's not just an off-the-shelf plug-and-play tune, right? So if you were going to tune a car, I would recommend that you do a custom tune like that because it makes a big difference. Now, so this is a Saab 9.3, 2009, 2-liter turbo with the big T. So it's got the slightly more powerful turbo. This car makes around 210 horsepower, I think, out of the factory. I don't know, whatever the number is, it's kind of irrelevant because as it comes from the factory, it's not really that fast. But the advantage of having a turbocharged car is that you can play around with the way that the turbo spools up, the rate at which it spools up. You can play around with ignition timing and fuel mapping, all that stuff, like I said, and you can completely transform these things for not very much money. So this is a review of not just a 9.3 turbo, but one that has been tuned to stage 1. Because this is a very popular thing in the Saab community, and when I was shopping around for tunes, I couldn't find very many reviews like this. So here are my impressions of this car. I drove it extensively before, driven it extensively after. Here it goes. So let's get a few things out of the way before I bother talking about the engine. This is the Epsilon platform. GM got their grubby little hands into Saab in this era, and they messed up a bunch of things, in my opinion. This car does not handle well. I'm not going to dance around it. Don't mistake that, though, for it not being nice to drive, because it is. It's very nice to drive. It's got an incredibly beautiful ride. It's quiet. It's extremely comfortable. Actually, the steering, I do love. It has a great on-center feel, decent weight, acceptable feedback. Not very much torque steer for a front-wheel drive car. The chassis, though, is not balanced in any way. The word balance doesn't even come into the description when you start talking about it. It has loads of grip for a 215 section width tire that it comes with, but when you start to really push it with the traction control off, it makes understeer its job, its sole obsession, you could say. So as a track toy or as a on-the-limit car, this is not the one to have. But if you keep it within its limits, it's actually a really, really nice car to drive. On an on-ramp, and it actually feels like it's balanced because there's passive rear wheel steering. Saab engineered that into the back. It's kind of complex, lots of control arms and stuff going on there. Don't exactly know how it works, but it works. It's great. So as long as you keep it within the limits of grip, this is a really great car. Now, on to the rest of it. This interior has a beautiful design. Driver-oriented, green gauges and dials, which are really cool at night. It's supposed to be like an aircraft, right? That was Saab's big marketing thing. Very soothing. I love driving this car. I could drive this car huge distances and not have a single complaint. Seats are comfortable. These aren't even the Aero seats. These are just the regular base seats, and the leather is real leather, by the way. Very high quality. The interior is, quality-wise, not very good. Design, good. Quality, no. Plastics everywhere. Everything you see is a hard plastic, and it's not really a nice plastic, to be perfectly honest. Gear shift, really long, not very good. There's lots of fantastic upgrades you can get for the gear shift. I did a short shifter in my 9.3 Aero, which I love. Okay, so most of those things out of the way, let's start talking about the engine, okay? So this has a inline 4 2-liter turbo, which, to be honest, did not have enough power out of the factory. It didn't. It was actually, the owner of this car said before, he stalled this car regularly because it just didn't have really a usable amount of torque down low. The clutch is very light and it doesn't have very much feel, so it was actually pretty easy to stall it. I did it a couple times too, to be honest. However, after the tune, a couple things have happened. There's way more power. Like way more power in every single gear. It is immediately noticeable. The car has become so much more accessible as a daily driving car. Since there is more torque available everywhere, as far as I can tell, there's none of that kind of stuttering feeling in the higher gears when you shift up too early by accident, or you pull away and you don't really give it enough gas. It just has enough gas now to pull away, which is great. And now it has an exciting amount of power. So second gear, oh, there's a wave of torque, which feels great. There it is. My little needle's in the red. Whee! And it keeps pulling into fourth gear, which is great. In fifth gear, obviously it pulls, and it has a sixth gear, and it still pulls. You can still feel a little mini wave of torque in sixth. It didn't do that before the tune. So it has awoken the car in a great way. So this is actually the maximum amount of power that you can get out of this car with a stock clutch, because the pressure plate is not strong enough to go up anymore. But the cool thing about it is that does not mean the car does not have more to give. When Alex was tuning it from Boost Customs, what he did was he tuned it, fully custom tuned stage 1. He drove it around, liked it, and then what he did was he called me up and he's like, you know what, I'm going to try and go stage 2 and see what we can do here. So he upped the boost pressure, did a few more things, took it for a drive, and found that the clutch was slipping. So this is, we put it back to stage 1, this is the most that you can get out of this engine without having to make physical modifications. So what it's done though, and this is why I'm a little bit sad about this car, is because turbos are a Saab thing. They're a Porsche thing, and they're a Subaru thing, and there are lots of other cars do turbos, but Saabs have been known for turbos for a long time. They're very good at it. They've been doing it almost as long as the best of them, right? So what this has done, this tune, is it has made the turbo a serious part of the car. It has made it noticeable. Before, it just kind of blended in with the engine and be part of it, just driving around. Now, the turbo feels like, you go, there's the turbo. You can hear the turbo. You can feel it kick in, right? There isn't a huge amount of lag. There's a normal amount of turbo lag, nothing to have a fit about. But put my foot down in third gear, there it is. You can't hear it, but I can hear it going. It's cool. Whoa, we're going fast. Driving this car before and after is honestly like night and day for drivability. And the owner said that he hasn't stalled it since. So that's something worth noting. And if you really get your foot down and then lift it off abruptly, you can hear the turbo go whoosh, even with the stock factory airbox on. So you might not be able to hear it, but I can. That's cool. This car though is something that means a lot to me because of its history with me, how I learned on it, and the fact that it represents Saabness for me. Saabness is not a word, just made that up, but it's definitely there because of that turbo feel. The turbo has become this thing that you can think about every time you put your foot down, which makes the car special now. So if you like this video, like and subscribe. I've got lots more content coming like this in the future. Until then, get out there and drive. I'll talk to you later.